They put a 25-year-old man with less than 3 years of service in our agency to do my job that I had successfully done for over 5 years.
That amounted to discrimination because you believe he got the job because he was gay and you're straight.
Correct.
Marlene Ames was working for the Ohio Department of Youth Services when a position opened up as bureau chief.
And then you decided to put in for promotion.
Yes. My supervisor at the time asked if I was going to apply.
But just a few days after she got her 30-year service pin, Ames found out instead of a promotion, she was being demoted to a secretary.
It was humiliating going to work every day.
Humiliating.
Yes.
They cut your salary almost in half.
Yes, $40,000. So of course I went into a panic over that.
The colleague who replaced her was gay, and shortly afterward, the promotion went to a woman who was also gay.
Thought, okay, well, there's something more at play here.
The Supreme Court just ruled that reverse discrimination is still discrimination. In other words, discriminating against somebody because they're heterosexual or white is illegal. And this is why I voted for Trump.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. So in this video, we're going to get into this fascinating story that I had no clue was going on. Where you had a straight white woman bring a lawsuit because she was discriminated against because she was straight. She applied for a position at her job, to basically a promotion, and her LGBTQ member boss decided to hire another LGBTQ member over her because allegedly she was a straight woman. And not only that, after applying for this position, her LGBTQ member boss decided to demote her and give her position away to another LGBTQ member. Yeah, so this is absolutely crazy. Now, before we get into the details of the story and what the Supreme Court ruling is, we're going to get into the reaction of some woke liberals who are upset that the Supreme Court says that you cannot discriminate against a majority group, right? Whether it be white people, Christians, straights, you cannot discriminate against them either. We get equal protection under the law, under the Civil Rights Act, right? It does not matter if you're minority or majority, which is absolutely hilarious to me because you always see and hear liberals claim that you can't be racist if you're black or if you're a minority in this country. And it looks like the Supreme Court disagrees. So I'll give you guys my take at the end. Let's get into their reaction and then we'll get into the new segment.
Upset because she went for a promotion and a lesbian was hired instead. I mean, was that part of the qualification? I thought that when it comes to job interviews, it is illegal to ask those type of questions. It is illegal to even have that be a part of your interview process when it comes to your sexuality or your religion or your race or your gender. So she's mad that a lesbian got the promotion, she got demoted, and a gay man took her spot. Could it just be coincidence that these people who got, could it be just a coincidence that the people who got hired for these positions just so happen to be homosexual? It's probably a high coincidence. It's kind of, we're just going to have to wait to see what proof comes out. And I'm like, there must be some type of proof for the Supreme Court to make this decision. But we all know how the Supreme Court likes to work. And we all know that the Supreme Court now doesn't work in our favor. So we'll have to wait and see how this turns out. But I just think that this is not a good thing.
The Supreme Court just unanimously sided with a woman who is claiming that she was discriminated against because she is, wait for it, straight. Let me repeat. The Supreme Court just unanimously sided with a woman claiming reverse discrimination and that she was passed up for a promotion at work because she is, again, heterosexual. The justice's decision affects lawsuits in 20 states and the District of Columbia, where until now, courts had set a higher bar when members of a majority group, including those who are white and heterosexual, sue for discrimination under federal law. So it wasn't that before this case, you couldn't sue for discrimination if you're white or you're heterosexual. It's just that there was a higher bar for you to prove that that actually happened. But now it's going to be much easier for people to claim reverse discrimination, whether it be racially or in terms of sexual orientation. During Pride Month of all motherfucking months, bro. This is bad. This is setting a really dangerous precedent. What else is new?
I just think this is really irresponsible. The phrasing, the wording is going to set a really bad precedent. The last thing that we need is for the Supreme Court to make reverse discrimination a thing. Discrimination is sufficient enough. What we don't need is this. I'm not saying this lawsuit is invalid, but it's the reverse discrimination part that I have a problem with. Because with the dismembering of DEI, and now you can supposedly, report that you think somebody didn't get a job based on their merit because, somebody with different color skin got a promotion at their job. You can check into that. I just feel like we're starting to open doors we can't close.
And it's going to be reverse racism, and then millennials, why don't we just make fetch a thing? Some of us can't just jump out of the timeline.
The court isn't neutral. It's a hammer for the regime. The Supreme Court's latest ruling in Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services doesn't just smell like ideology, it reeks of it, like gym socks stuffed in a church pew. Let's be honest, this court is not defending civil rights, it's defending a narrative. And that narrative is white, straight, Christian grievance wrapped in the soft fabric of equality under law. They're not reversing discrimination, they're reversing progress. And they're doing it with a smile and a robe and the full institutional weight of the judiciary that has been reprogrammed like a dying hard drive to believe that fairness means letting white people sue because their feelings got hurt by inclusion.
Yeah, so there you have it. These people are absolutely delusional, right? They actually are exposing themselves because what they're telling us is that they believe that they should get special privileges and special rights over people that are majority in this country, right? That whole reverse discrimination is just discrimination. They don't believe that you can discriminate and be racist against whites and or, straight people. Hilarious. Let's get into this new segment here.
Devin, this discrimination case is a big one. What's the expected impact of this ruling?
Well, a very interesting case, Diane. This involved alleged reverse discrimination by a straight woman alleging being passed over for a job because she was not gay by a gay employer. And what the Supreme Court unanimously said today in this opinion by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is that the standard is the same no matter whether you're in a minority group or a majority group alleging discrimination. It's the same test for everybody under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which of course prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex or sexual orientation. What had happened in this case is Marlene Ames, the plaintiff who was seeking to sue the Ohio Department of Youth Services, where she had worked for 15 years, brought her claims to court. They were tossed out by a federal appeals court that said she had to prove something higher because she was a white straight woman. She had to show some background circumstances in order to even get in the courthouse door. But what the Supreme Court said today is it's a level playing field for everybody under Title VII, no matter who you are. You simply have to show a plausible case of discrimination, and then you can bring your claim.
So, James, what stands out to you from the court's opinion in this case?
Well, Devin's summary there, Diana, is extraordinarily thorough, as always. The thing that I would say here is that this is, in a sense, the Supreme Court was ruling today as to a court of appeals decision that had applied not in all of the circuits across the country, but in many of the circuits, roughly half of the circuits across the country, in interpreting the Civil Rights Act. There was a 1981 decision in the D.C. circuit that essentially said that if you were claiming discrimination, but you were not a member of a historically discriminated against group, so here a white straight woman, that you needed to provide additional background circumstances, that there was essentially an additional predicate hurdle that you needed to clear that wouldn't necessarily be a hurdle that an individual who was from one of those groups would need to have cleared. And so the Supreme Court, in addition to the technical aspects of this decision, essentially, and particularly I think because this is a unanimous decision, is saying that whatever the disagreements that still remain with respect, and there are many, with respect to how the Civil Rights Act applies and how the Civil Rights Act applies, particularly to so-called reverse discrimination suits, the Supreme Court, in essence, today, in a unanimous ruling, as Devin said, by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, said, basically, we are no longer in 1981. At least with respect to federal discrimination law, the court is saying, this is no longer 1981. The same standards need to apply. And to be clear, this does not mean that Ames wins her case. It just means she gets another chance to press the case without that hurdle.
Yeah, we're going to stop it right there. It just means that she gets equal rights and equal protection under the law. This is hilarious how they're labeling this as a reverse discrimination. No, this is just plain old discrimination. And what I love about this, the funny part about it to me, is that you always hear, right? You always hear Democrats and woke liberals and these white woke liberals and these pro-black liberals always saying minorities can't be racist. Blacks can't be racist, right? They can't be racist because they're the minority in this country. They don't hold any power in the country, so therefore they can't be racist, which is literally not true at all. You can be racist. It doesn't matter how big of a minority you are in the country. But this right here just proves, and the Supreme Court agrees, that it does not matter whether you're a minority group or a majority group, you can be racist. That's what this is. If you're discriminating against somebody based on their race or their gender or whatever, right, then you are being racist or sexist or whatever you want to label it as. This is absolutely hilarious. This is a win. Now, also, what this proves to me is that there is systemic racism in this country. Democrats are right. Liberals are correct about that. That is something that I agree with, that there is systemic racism in this country. Systemic racism against white people and straight people and Christians, right? This is what this is. This is systemic racism. This was laws in the books that stated that if you are part of a majority group, meaning you're white or straight or a Christian, right? You're the majority. You have to have a lot more evidence, and the burden of proof is on you if you are bringing forth a discrimination lawsuit. And what I understood when I did my research was that for a majority individual and a majority group to bring a lawsuit like this, they have to have proof and a pattern, right? They have to show that this has occurred multiple times at a course of a certain amount of time. Now, the difference was that if you are part of a minority group, you didn't have that standard, right? You can just say, hey, I'm being discriminated against because of my skin color or because of my gender, because I'm gay or black or whatever, and they were going to hear your case, right? You didn't necessarily have to bring a plethora of evidence, right? And that's what this eliminates, is that it doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're straight, if you're gay, everybody gets equal treatment and equal rights under the law. This is what they wanted, right? I thought they wanted equality. So if a minority doesn't have to prove, that they are being discriminated as because of their skin color, and you have to bring a whole bunch of evidence, then of course the majority should be able to get the same rights, right? That's what I believe. So this proves that there was systemic racism holding back straight people, white people, Christians, the majority in this country, from being able to bring forth discrimination lawsuits based on their skin color, based on their sexuality, right? That's what systemic racism is, right? Discrimination based on things that you can't inherently change. So if there was more of a requirement, or the standards were higher because of your skin color and sexuality, then that is discrimination. Right? I don't understand how people don't get this, but this is hilarious. For this to happen on Pride Month is absolutely comical. But here's the thing that also liberals are not pointing out. It was unanimous. Even the woke Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who wrote the opinion, by the way, was a part of the decision, saying that, hey, no, this isn't right. Right? If you're white, you can bring discrimination lawsuits if you're being discriminated as, and if you're, black, you can do the same exact thing, and y'all get equal treatments and equal rights. I mean, I don't understand how that's controversial. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this story here. Absolutely entertaining and enlightening. I didn't know that. Honestly, I had no idea that there were different standards for that. This, once again, proves the existence of systemic racism in this country. But let me know what you guys think about this story here. Let's talk about it in the comment section. Let me know what your opinions are. And, of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.